Hey, I'm Todd. Thanks for choosing to watch my video, and if you would subscribe it, like it, all that stuff, that'd be great. Otherwise, enjoy the video, and I hope it gives you the information you need and is helpful to you. Take care. 2009 Dodge Durango front brake pad replacement, front brake caliper replacement. I'm going to take the lug nuts off. All nuts and bolts are left to loosen. That's counterclockwise. Right to tighten, clockwise. I'm going to go ahead and jack up the vehicle. Break the lug nuts loose a turn or two on the ground, then jack it up. Have some good framework here for a jack and a safety stand. Or up here if you want to do, jack up all the front, the whole front, right up there. Jack it up there in the middle, use safety stands, protect yourself. Once it's off the ground, go ahead and take the tire off the rest of the way. 22mm lug nuts. On this vehicle anyway. Capped lug nuts, one of the worst inventions, especially those in the rust belt. Probably know about that, where they swell up and are not the same size. This happens to be from Canada, and it's wheel stuck on. Check and see how there's fingers on the outside here. They don't get tucked in, they're on the outside. Little spring action, just so you know. There's like two 13mm bolts here for the caliper, and then there's two bigger bolts. I think there's 17 or 18 for the caliper mount. So if I'm just doing a caliper replacement, I'm just going to replace this whole assembly here, and I take the two big bolts out, not worry about the little bolts. But for brake pad replacement, I'll show you. Take those out. Like to check to make sure the caliper is good by collapsing it. Just get in here. And then between the rotor and the pad usually or something, just give it a pry. You make this sure the slides are sliding and the pistons collapse. If they are, then you can maybe just go ahead and do the brakes, as I'll show you. Otherwise, if they don't, which the other side is kind of semi-locked up, the wheel turns really hard. So that's why we're doing calipers. But anyway, here we go. Pad replacement, then I'll continue on just replacing the caliper. Sometimes you can take the bottom one and flip up the caliper, but not on this. So you would collapse the pistons as far as you can, and then lift this off, and you can use a C-clamp or channel locks and collapse it the rest of the way. I just flip it up like that, put a brake pad in here, and then collapse it with a large channel locks. Myself is what I'd do. Or again, a large C-clamp. And they make special tools too if you want to go buy those or rent those at your local store. We got our brake pads. So you're not trying to tuck these in. These are springs and they go on the outside, and they're installed right. And then we got our two, I think they're 19s, but we'll take those off, and then we can just slide the rotor off. 21mm actually. You take these out, put a little caliper lube on them, put them back in. You see theirs are pretty good though, but it's always nice to put a little extra lube on there.
Angel Dave came home, picked the school. She's like, "Are you okay? You back?" I'm like us.
So I got my new rotors. I want to make sure they're the same size, level, stack up nice. Looking good. These are Rabestis with a protective coating, so you don't need to clean it. But if you don't get a rotor with a protective coating, they put a little oil on there, so you want to wash it off with warm soap and water. All the brake surface, you want to wash it on the front and back. But these we can just install. I'm going to clean up the hub a little bit here because of the rust. It's not a requirement. Sometimes you can put a bolt lug nut back on here and hold this straight on, which makes it a little easier sometimes to put stuff back together. Alright, here's we're going to switch to mounting the new caliper. I'm going to take the caliper apart in two pieces, just makes it easier to put back together. Just separated it, took out the two 13mm bolts. We can put this on and tighten these down to 130 foot-pounds. Start all nuts and bolts by hand. Just put these babies on. Mine don't come with on the pad, so this slide on and off. Pretty easy peasy on both sides. I'm going to put a little lubricant on here too, caliper lubricant on the slide part where it touches metal. Got to get them started, and we'll squeeze them together and drop our caliper on there. If you drop your caliper on your front brakes or rear brakes or wherever, and you see the bleeder screw is down here, it's in the wrong spot. It must be in the top. When you get the air out, air is going to float up, so it needs a way to escape, so bleeder screw up on top. And we'll do that. "24 foot-pounds. Got this in here. We need to stop this from turning. Of course, my high quality wrenches are too fat.
Well, I am also not finding that.
And we'll zip off the 15mm banjo bolt off the caliper and transfer it on here. I got two new copper washers on here to use with my caliper. I filled up my master cylinder before doing this, so I know that I have enough fluid for some to run out. It will not go empty, which you'd rather not have. Give my bolt a little wipe down. I'll wipe this down, make sure there's no extra copper washers on it. Tighten the banjo bolt to 133 inch-pounds. And we'll open up the bleeder screw and let some, just let it gravity bleed for a little while. Alright, and we'll get ready to have someone help us bleed the brakes. So here we are at the master cylinder, which you want to keep full as possible. There's a minimum and maximum line on the sides here, maximum on top, minimum here, down below. So just screw on, screw off, .3 brake fluid. Just make sure it's full, but not too full. If you're doing the collapsing the pistons, you just don't want fluid coming out. So keep an eye on that. Brake fluid can do damage to paint. So we'll just top this off with some .3 brake fluid, and then we'll begin the bleeding procedure. And using a second person is what you'll see. Someone will be stepping on the brakes, pumping it 3 or 4 times. Then they hold the brake pedal down to the floor. Then you open up the bleeder screw. They'll feel their brake pedal will go whoop. Go down some, that'll be the fluid flowing through the brake system. Then you close off the bleeder screw, basically when it stops flowing. Then they can let up and pump a few times, maybe 3 or 4 times, and then hold it, and then you repeat the process. Open the bleeder, pedal goes down, close the bleeder off. And you want to do that until you don't see any more air spitting out of the bleeder screw hole. Solid stream of fluid. Brakes, and they're holding it down. Then we're going to open up the bleeder. That was a pretty good stream. Go ahead and pump it up. Push it about 3 or 4 times, and we'll open it up. Get a nice steady stream of fluid after 2 times here, so I think we're good here. Pump it up. Ooh, lefty loosey. A little bit of air shot out of there. Pump it up. And one more time. We'll get 2 solid streams, and this will be good. This is the basic bleeding procedure for front and rear brakes with calipers. Alright, so you put your wheels back on. Torque spec is 130 to 150. So kind of a spec, kind of not. And tighten them in a crisscross pattern. Vehicle off the ground, still up in the air. Put them on as tight as you can. Of course, the wheels start spinning, and you can lower it down and torque them down. That would be replacing your front brake pads and rotors and calipers. Dodge Durango, excuse me. I'm sure there's a big difference